Okay. So, just like every other Colts fan out there, let's all take a breath. A lot of things happened today, and we got a lot to talk about tonight. So, welcome everyone to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast by the Horseshoe Huddle on FanNation.si.com. My name is Andrew Moore. I am an analyst and a writer for Horseshoe Huddle. Some of you may know me from a Colts podcast. Um, and I am here today with a new member of the team here at Horseshoe Huddle, a guy that I greatly respect his opinions on the Indianapolis Colts, Drake Wally. How you doing, man? Great to have you. And he's going to be the co-host on this Horseshoe Huddle podcast that we're going to have weekly here. So how's it going, man? Good to have you.
It's really good to be here. Little bit of a hectic day to get your start, but I'm really excited for, everyone always gets excited for the future. This is something new, a mid-season departure, but got a lot to dissect here. Not sure if the time allotted is enough, but we're going to try to make it work. So really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a lot to talk about. For those that have followed me from a Colts podcast, I could be long-winded. So we're going to try to keep it to about 35, 40 minutes tonight. But we're still going to give all of our analysis on Frank Reich, Jeff Saturday. And I think people forget the Colts did play a game yesterday against the New England Patriots. So we've already got quite a few people in the chat. Stats Matt, the legend himself. What's up, man? Glad you could join us. For Taryn, RIP to a Colts podcast, RIP and peace to that. And then Kurt's already a big fan of Drake here. So, but yeah, I mean, first of all, in a Colts podcast fashion, I'm going to tell you to go follow us I almost said at a Colts podcast, but at Colts on FN on Twitter. Go like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, and go subscribe to Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube and hit that bell. So every time Drake and I go live, you'll be right in there. But let's not delay this any longer. Let's talk about what happened around 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern time today. The Colts officially fired head coach Frank Reich. Definitely something I didn't see coming in the middle of the season. I thought this was probably going to happen once the season had ended. But Jim Irsay decided to make the decision today. So looking back at Frank Reich's tenure, he was here technically about 4.5 years as the Indianapolis Colts head coach. He was 40-33-1 as the head coach, 1-2 in the playoffs. And here's that big stat, Drake. 7 different starting quarterbacks in 4.5 years, 5 different week 1 starters. It's really tough as a head coach when you have that much turnover at the most important position in football to really get anything going. And as Tom Brady, our loyal listener, says, lots of interesting news today.
There he is. Thank God.
he's spot on. So, Drake, I want to ask you here, why do you think the Colts decided to fire Frank Reich here and now, 9 weeks into the season?
I actually was asking myself that. I saw the update and I was at first thinking, wow, I didn't really expect that to happen, even less with the same day hire, but that's later. I think that it was a case of, to quote, honestly, I'll just say it, to quote the Pat McAfee show today, he gave his insight on what Irsay was thinking, played for him and everything, and he said he just probably didn't see anything getting better in sight, and there's still quite a few games left to play. And it's like, you could still somehow, some way make the playoffs. I mean, it's a totally wide open, wild West type landscape. So it's like, if you think you can still do it, I guess you got to do it. So
and I think just looking at what everything this Colts team has been through, especially the last few weeks, you talk about the benching of Matt Ryan for Sam Ehlinger, the firing of offensive coordinator Marcus Brady, sending Nyheim Hines to the Buffalo Bills. At some point, it's just the buck stops here. And Frank Reich, honestly, the past couple weeks even just looked like a man that had run out of answers. I mean, the offensive line is at its worst spot since 2017, maybe even be worse than that, considering how many high profile guys you have on that offensive line and the amount of dollars that you've invested into that offensive line. And this offense was just going absolutely nowhere. I mean, the Colts averaged 2 yards per play against the New England Patriots on Sunday. That's
Yeah.
awful. That's awful. And yes, it's not all on Frank Reich. The players have to take responsibility. The front office and Chris Ballard certainly have to take responsibility for this. It just has gone from bad to worse. And I mean, in 30 years that Frank Reich or that Jim Irsay has been the head decision maker for this team, he's never fired a head coach midseason. Even through that 2011 year when the Colts didn't win a game till like the 14th game of the year.
Yeah.
Even in 2017, the last year of Chuck Pagano, they waited till after the year to fire Pagano. It's just nothing. It's just something you don't really expect to see from the Indianapolis Colts. Was this something that you expected to happen middle of the season, or were you thinking it was going to happen more after the season, or not at all?
Right out of the gate, you got to say it's not easy to have 7 starters, and it all chain linked once Luck abruptly retired, I think like a month before the season started. So Reich's just been on a carousel, and he actually, contrary to popular belief, does not choose the quarterback. He can give his influence, but that's about it. I didn't expect it to happen. I thought that they were at least going to give him till the end of the year and just not. Honestly, I didn't expect the Marcus Brady firing either. I didn't expect him to move any pieces. They even said we're not going to tank. We're not going to do anything different. They gave up Hines, but that's because they don't feel like they could utilize him well enough. So I did not expect it. I'm still kind of shocked by it, and we'll see if somebody might scoop up Reich. I mean, who knows? There's probably going to be other firings. So
I would say we're on the cusp of a cleaning house, if I'm being completely honest, because it's just because you fire Frank Reich and you bring in the guy we're going to talk about here in a bit, things aren't going to get magically better. I mean, and as Joe Brewer says here, Frank should have been gone first before anybody else was, or Joe Bowser, I should say. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there's other people you can point the finger at. I mean, number one, yeah, Frank Reich has a strong. He has his fingerprints all over what's going wrong here, but at the same time, I mean, players have to be held accountable. Position coaches, namely Chris Strausser on the offensive line, and Marcus Brady certainly wasn't without blame. Yeah, he didn't call plays, but that's just one very small thing of what an offensive coordinator would do is call plays. Marcus Brady was involved with getting these guys prepared. He was involved in the day-to-day, the game plan for this offense. So just because he didn't call plays doesn't mean that he was just a yes man behind the scenes. He had a very big impact on this team. And I just think when news like this happens in the middle of the season, especially and yes, I think people get caught up in the moment because the Colts are 3-5-1. Things aren't going exactly the way they should. But Frank Reich also, I want to get back to that, 7 different starting quarterbacks in 4.5 years. And yet Frank Reich had a winning record with this team. He made it to the playoffs 2 out of 4 seasons with this going on. So it's not like Frank Reich was an abysmal coach. I think Frank Reich is still a quality coach. But at the same time, it's probably time to move on. Do I agree with it being in the middle of the season? Probably not, because I don't think it really changes much besides just getting an uproar out of the fan base. But it was probably time to move on. What do you think?
I mean, it was going to be eventual. I 100% agree with you. I don't think that it was needed now. I even go back to this. Imagine just being as simple as Michael Pittman. All right. So you start your career with Phillip Rivers, and then you go to Carson Wentz, and then you go to Matt Ryan, and then you're with Sam Ellinger, and now you have a new coach, you have a new offensive coordinator who knows, Ryan might go right back in. And if Saturday likes Foles more, who knows? No one knows what the hell is even going to happen. So that's pretty much, I'm quoting every player on the team right now. They don't know what the hell is going to happen. So I still think that they probably, in all honesty, should have kept him, but it was time for a change. They just kind of fast tracked the process, I think.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point. And we kind of talked about this before we went live as well. just imagine what these players are going through in that locker room. Imagine like DeForest Buckner in the middle of that locker room today when everything was breaking, Frank Reich getting fired, and then Jeff Saturday being named as the interim head coach. What is going through these players' minds? Not just DeForest Buckner, but the big leaders on this team, like a Quentin Nelson, a Ryan Kelly, a Shaq Leonard, Stephon Gilmore, guys that came here in free agency because they thought this team was ready to win now and be a playoff contender, not only a playoff contender, but make a deep playoff run. And now you find yourself 3-5 with no head coach, an
Yep.
interim head coach that has very little coaching experience, period, let alone in the league. So it's really a strange situation to be in. And I think that's we can get into our next point. It was the other big news of the day, which literally left my jaw gaping open for at least 5 to 10 minutes. I was just absolutely speechless. Is that Jeff Saturday was named the interim head coach for the Indianapolis Colts for the rest of the season. Drake, tell me what your thoughts were. What was going through your head the moment you saw that news?
So my first question was, and I don't even know if this is a question as much as it is a statement, but what in the hell? Like I literally, and it's nothing against the great 63, man. I mean, that dude, if there's one man who probably understands offensive line, it's Jeff Saturday. But why is Strausser still with the team? He's the guy who coaches the offensive line. A lot of questions are going on. I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. I personally, in my opinion, I thought that Gus Bradley should have been the rightful interim coach. The best thing about this team is its defense. He runs the defense. He's head coached a team called Saxonville, who almost made a Super Bowl with a quarterback named Blake Bortles, who went to practice squad and now retired because nobody wants him. I mean, I just thought Gus Bradley was an easy, like, I even texted you, mark my words, it's Gus
Mhm.
Bradley. And then Jeff Saturday pops up. I thought it was a joke, but then I realized, no, it's not Gus Bradley. It's Jeff Saturday. So
Right.
I don't
And
know, man.
And
It's crazy.
our comments are kind of reflecting this. I mean, Stats Matt brings up a good point as always. I really want to know what was said to the players today.
Yeah.
Kind of working off of our next point. Taryn says the random hiring screams Ursay, and he said, "Let's bring back the rest of the Super Bowl squad to coach." Peyton Manning at OC. We already got
Just had
Reggie
Ring of Honor
Wayne.
Tarek Glenn, man. Let's get
Yeah,
him back in there.
there we go. So and yeah, you nailed it on the head here. I honestly thought it would be someone from within too, because you have multiple candidates that I think, whether deserving is the right word, but I think they're qualified. I mean, Gus Bradley has been a head coach in this league, and the defense has been playing fairly well this season. A lot of people forget John Fox is on the Colts coaching staff, a senior defensive assistant with the Colts this year. He has plenty of head coaching experience and has coached in multiple Super Bowls.
Yep.
And then you got a guy in Bubba Ventrone where he has been rising, and a guy that I mean, Brandon and I have talked about it on a Colts podcast, talked about it on Locked On Colts with Jake and Zach. Bubba Ventrone is a guy that is a rising star in the coaching ranks, and I think he's going to be a head coach at some point. So when you have at least three guys in house that you could choose from to take over that are already familiar with the staff, it just makes this decision to go out and get Jeff Saturday and hire him as your interim head coach that much more confusing, that much more puzzling. And I know Jeff Saturday has been a consultant for the Colts, and Ursay values his opinion, but at the same time, man, this guy has not been in the locker room all season long. He is a true outsider.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we can both agree on this, that this was 100% a Jim Irsay hire, and we'll see how that impacts what goes on with the relationship between Saturday and Ballard, Saturday and the rest of the coaching staff. Uh, do you think that there could be some issues down the rest of the way throughout the season? Because I mean, Jeff Saturday's a great guy, but he hasn't been in that locker room through the fire of this abysmal season.
Well, no, and his last uniform was a Green Bay Packers uniform. Okay, I mean, the guy has been removed from the Colts even farther than his playing days. And look, again, a bunch of Colts fans. I know that the old guard, I mean, we could be considered that too, just because we love the Peyton Manning days. This is a guy who saw that leadership. I mean, he's got a team right now that he is now going to take over that is not only confused, they don't know what the hell is going on. They lost so much. It's the direction of the season isn't what was anticipated. I tear up every time I see old Matty Ice standing over there with no shoulder pads on, looking
Mhm.
like he's about to cry onto his Rolex. Okay. So I just, I'm really, really iffy about it. I do think that there could potentially be some issues because I know he's been a consultant, like you said, but how well does he really know these players? I actually texted a couple of my buddies and said he could be 8-0 to finish the season. He could also be 0-8.
Mhm.
I mean, we know nothing about this
We
guy.
really don't.
No, we know how he
Yeah,
plays. That's it.
yeah, I mean, he's got obviously 5-time, 6-time Pro Bowler with the Indianapolis Colts, made some All
Of
Pros,
course.
Super Bowl champion. But Jeff Saturday's only coaching experience has been 3 seasons as the head coach of a high school down in Georgia. And I think his head coaching record, he was 20-16 as
They
the
play
head
tough
coach.
football though, Andrew.
They
Okay.
do. Hey, Georgia
Wow.
Georgia high school football is no joke. But and then I think our chat's bringing up a really good point here as well. As we got Gardaki's Playground, hopefully I'm saying that right, said Saturday is evaluating, not coaching. Stats Matt says that report was Ballard was going to name Bubba the head
All
coach.
that.
And then Stats Matt also said, let me see if I can find it here. Actually, it wasn't Stats Matt. It was Chris Wallace here saying there's a much bigger plan for Saturday. The season is a loss. This is an evaluation period. It very well could be.
Okay.
I mean, we're seeing that it could be that Irsay is bringing in a guy from the outside, a guy that he respects, and a guy that he knows is going to be straight up with him to really evaluate not only the players in the locker room and the players up close through their play, but also the culture and reevaluate pretty much everything in this organization. And I'm sure Jeff Saturday, as was reported by Zach Kiefer of the Athletic earlier, that Jim Irsay wants to see if Irsay could actually be the answer as a full-time head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. This is still an evaluation process, not only for Saturday, but for this entire team, this entire roster, the front office, from top down, to see if absolutely needs to be cleaned house, if it just needs to be retooled in certain areas, wherever. But it's been a long time since the Indianapolis Colts were in this dire of a situation where it could go either way. And just how many massive changes really could be on the horizon for this team.
Well, I remember thinking, wow, they really only made one move at the trade deadline. I wasn't saying that they were going to, sell off Gilmore or sell off Ngakwe or
Mhm.
these guys that they worked so hard to get. Eh, The defense, it's been absolutely brilliant. Okay, you can only ask those guys to play for so long before they turn into human beings and can't play anymore and they're gassed.
Mhm.
But I was surprised that more moves weren't made. So that's why it's so weird for me to see one move made before the deadline, but you're going to fire your head coach mid-season, get rid of your offensive coordinator, leave your O-line coach, which is the worst thing about the team, and you're going to hire a man who we all love and respect. But what the hell? He doesn't coach. He coaches high school, you said. I mean, it's
Mhm.
like I don't know, man. Like Taryn said, it sounds so much like an Ursay move where he was just like, you know what? He slammed down the whiskey and coke, and he's like, "We need Jeff and Saturday." That's what he said in his office. He yelled it, and everyone was like, "Okay."
Yeah, it's different because I I look at it like this. Jim Irsay, I mean, he for the past few years, he really doesn't get that involved
Yeah.
in personnel decisions like this. And we've heard how he was really the one that was behind the benching of Matt Ryan for Sam Ellinger. And now obviously he's the one that fires Frank Reich and brings in Jeff Saturday. He's really getting involved in this process, which obviously makes you think that really how much longer does Chris Ballard have as the GM of the Colts? If Chris Ballard's not able to really make these decisions and Irsay is kind of taking over, that's why I think we're on the cusp of probably some very large scale franchise altering decisions being made and changes being made for this entire organization. So and stats Matt kind of echoing, yes, is yeah, people overestimate how much Ursay is actually involved prior to the last couple weeks.
Oh yeah.
And he
Oh
really
yeah.
is. I mean, he has his fingerprints all over this too. He's always said this. He says he hires his people to do their job, but he intervenes when it's most important. He intervenes when there's a quarterback decision. When he brought up this example when he was talking to or in the 2020 draft when they were considering drafting Jonathan Taylor, Ursay stepped in and said, Chris, you've been talking about this guy for a long time now. You really like him. Go up and get him. So it's just very interesting to see. And I know Ursay is involved behind the scenes, and I think we're getting more that's becoming more prevalent now just because of the high scale moves that they are making. But it's going to be interesting to see what moves are made over the next few weeks if other guys get fired or things get switched around with Ursay having his hand in these things. It's going to be very interesting to watch.
Well, and it's just it's drama that the Colts, like you said, they're just not used to. I mean, in 2012, we had Kerry Collins, followed by Curtis Painter, followed by Dan Orlovsky, who insanely enough was the same guy that walked out of his own end zone and yet wins us 2 games. That was dramatic as hell. McAfee jumps in the canal. We all remember that year. It was just a dandy year to be a Colts fan, and you at least knew Andrew Luck was on the horizon. Now, this year is a little worse, in my opinion, just because it's like the owner feels so threatened by how bad the team has played that he feels the need to get involved enough to remove a coach and replace him with a guy that he just trusts.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even everyone. Maybe he'll do fantastic and we'll all look at each other and go, well, there's a reason he gets paid the big bucks, or something like that. But I don't know, man. It's looking really weird. The reason it's so fun to talk about it is because we don't know any direction this is going to go. So
Right,
yeah.
exactly. And StatsBat says, hey, with how today went, Orlovsky is on pace to be the offensive coordinator next year.
That's right, man.
And from what I saw today, I would not be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah.
But it's at least for us, whether you're a fan of this team, whether you cover this team, whether you're both, it's going to be interesting these next 8 weeks where there's a lot of things that need to be figured out. There's a lot of things that a lot of answers that we're still waiting on, and it's all going to unfold right in front of our eyes. So it's going to be one hell of a time to watch this team and see where it goes. But and kind of what I was alluding to earlier in the show, there was a Colts football game yesterday, and I think we can now firmly say that it was the straw that broke the camel's back when the Colts got thoroughly embarrassed by the New England Patriots yesterday in Foxborough, 26-3. And I don't think we need to really put it off. Let's dive into what I would say was an abysmal performance by the Indianapolis Colts offense. What did you see yesterday? What's your analysis, Drake? Go ahead, just rip into him. This is a safe space.
Good. I am so happy it's safe. No, okay. So I was talking. I'll just start here. I was talking on Saturday with our good friend Brandon Moses, and he said, "Dude," he goes, "There's just something about this season." He's like, nobody knows what they're doing. He's like, in fact, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, watch Quentin Nelson. He goes, watch Quentin Nelson. Incredible. It's insane. I don't understand it. And I was just like, okay, that's vague but intriguing. And like, it wasn't even just him. The whole, especially Braden Smith, they all just looked like they didn't want to be in Foxborough, man. And Ellinger has to prove he can start with arguably the best QB draft class overall incoming, while his coach is being switched out. His terrible O-line coach is still there. And there's just all of this, there's just this bad energy going on. So I think that that game just kind of highlighted the turmoil that's going on, and I feel a little bad for Ellinger that he had to play that game with all this fire going on around him.
Yeah, I think you nail it on the head when you say it just kind of highlights all the turmoil that this team has gone under. And I mean, when I was writing about this game and Ellinger leading up to this game against the Patriots, the stat that really stood out to me is that first and second year quarterbacks are 4-42 against Bill Belichick and the Patriots at Gillette Stadium since 2003. It was going to be tough because what Bill Belichick does is, and this is well known, is he goes and he shows you a one defense pre-snap. It gets completely switched post-snap. And this was why the chess match between him and Peyton Manning all those years was so fascinating to watch because of the back and forth between these two. And you saw it yesterday with Sam Ellinger. He was much slow to process things because he was having to dissect post-snap a lot of the time. He seemed timid. He seemed like he didn't want to push the ball down the field. And a part of that is because he was sacked 9 times. I get it. But at the same time, you got to let those rip. You really do. And I'm not gonna beat a dead horse here and I'm not gonna trash Ellinger because we knew from the start that he was going to probably have a rough game, and he certainly didn't get help from anybody. I mean, 121 total yards the Colts offense had, 2.0 yards per play, 0 for 14 on third down. The NFL record for most third downs without a conversion in a game is 15. The Colts were one shy of tying the NFL record at 0 for 14, at 0 for 15 on third down. Colts finished 0 14. That's when you look, and I think this is just looking at it from 1,000 feet up. You see Frank Reich fire Marcus Brady. You see Nyheim Hines go out the door. And then the very next game, we have 9 sacks, 2.0 yards per carry or per play, not even per carry, per play,
including passing.
The leading receiver in receptions, I think, was Jordan Wilkins with 4, and then for receiving yards, it was Alec Pierce at 23 yards on 1 catch, and that was the most receiving yards any Colts player had yesterday. It was just it was mind-boggling how bad the offense was for the Indianapolis Colts yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, and one of the things that, and it was near the end of the game, there was a play that really stood out to me with Kylen Granson, and we're not going to sit here and turn this into the crap on Kylen Granson hour, but in fact, I've got the notes here. One of the things that I realized is, the Colts have a dang good defense. It's not easy to move the ball on them, but New England utilized their tight ends very well. They helped Mac Jones make those easy, short little throws to the intermediate routes. Get 7-8 yards, you get closer, you death by paper cuts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts, literally right here, I've got it. Jelani Woods, 1 catch, 2 yards. Then we got Mo Alley Cox, 2 catches. Hold yourself, 13 yards.
Wow.
And then we got Kylen Granson with 1 drop straight into the Patriots defense for a beautiful touchdown. So, I mean, they actually out-received our tight ends by 4 receptions with 2 guys, and we had 3. So, I mean, it's just the tight ends are all it's something that I always think is a wild card no one talks about enough. You've got 2 basketball players that are 6'7", one of which is an athletic freak, and the other one's basically a Dallas Clark clone. They just don't know how to use them. They just can't get them to become pass catchers. And we're missing Jack Doyle more than I ever thought we would, honestly. So that was a big piece in the game that I thought that really could help Ellinger. Tight ends were absent, man. They were gone.
Yeah, absolutely. They weren't. And for an offense that really likes to rely on the tight ends, Frank Reich loved to utilize the tight ends, and they really just haven't been prevalent this year. And I mean, the chat looks like it's the same way. As we got a comment here, says we called more run plays yesterday than we do with Taylor. Jonathan Taylor wasn't out there, and honestly, even if he was, I don't know if he would have made that big of a difference, if I'm being honest. And then he says Ellinger's overall yards was 10 less than Mac Jones. Stats Matt says that when Woods dropped that corner route, I knew it was going to be a long day. And then Paul Wilson, that was the worst combined offense I've ever seen. Least amount of total yards in an NFL game since 1978, I
And
read.
it was
And
26-3.
26-3. And then here's where we can get into the defense and just how much the Colts offense let the defense down. The Colts defense really only allowed, I would say, 12 points yesterday, all field goals, because the other 14 points came off of a pick six, and it came off of the blocked punt by the Patriots that the Patriots recovered at the Colts 2-yard line, and they were able to get in for 6. So when you combine all that, that's just 12 points. And yes, the Patriots offense is not good. It really is not.
No.
But at the same time, when you hold an opposing offense to 12 points, that should be enough to win a football game. And it was just another wasted performance. We saw DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye basically live in the Patriots backfield all day. Grover Stewart was doing his thing. Bobby Okereke was all over the place. He did the Shaquille Leonard punch out, forced that fumble.
Yeah.
Julian Blackmon had a sack. The Colts were just all over the field, making things very, very tough for this Patriots offense. And they got zero help from offense. The special teams wasn't great. It's really a wasted effort that this Colts defense is really starting to come into their own and doing more than enough, that the Colts should be winning these games, and they're getting absolutely no help from the other two phases.
Well, it goes back to, I actually remember telling my girlfriend Aubrey this, that when they blocked that punt, it was a simple thing. You had a guy on the outside, you got a runner, you got a guy that's there to, try to stop him a little bit from the return. Belichick just decided to throw him at the punter. And they actually had 2 people over there, and he filled his spot, and the Colts could not react quick enough. And I just told Aubrey, and I hate to admit this, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I said, that is genius. I said, that is just knowing that the team you're playing, that's such a big risk. You could be susceptible to a fake punt out of nowhere doing that, and yet it worked perfectly. And I said, this is just the whole season. This is kind of how it's felt. This is kind of, I didn't expect to lose that bad. I think you said 21-10. But yeah, man, I love the defense. One of my favorite players this year has been Zaire Franklin. He's second in the league in tackles, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the dude is a runner. And so we've got all these great pieces, and it just makes me a little sick at my stomach to see 3 points after a top 5 defensive performance from, a hell of a group of guys, honestly.
Yeah.
So
the defense did everything they needed to get the Colts to win yesterday. Colts offense didn't show up. Colts special teams didn't show up. And for me, I got the vibe that's kind of how the game was going to go. When on the first third down of the game, I saw Matthew Judon, who leads the NFL in sacks, start out on the right side outside of Braden Smith, come on inside on a stunt, go right to Matt Pryor, who cannot pick up a stunt to save his life, and get right in the backfield to Sam Ellinger. Matthew Judon, 3 sacks through the first 3 quarters. And the thing is, that's what separates good coaching from bad coaching. Bill Belichick scouted that, saw that Matt Pryor, as well as the whole Colts fan base, knows
no idea what he's doing.
That Matt Pryor cannot hold up and protect a stunt. And you take your best pass rusher and you throw it right at him on a stunt. It was pretty simple execution by the Patriots. And it took at least a quarter. I think it was 4 series or a quarter for the Colts to adjust, finally yank Matt Pryor out of there, put Will Fries in. Did it help? Not really. The Patriots still got 5 or 6 sacks after that. But at the same time, just the failure of this coaching staff and to keep Matt Pryor in there, the failure of Matt Pryor to not adjust and self-scout and know that you need to be prepared for that. It pretty much sums up the entire offense for the Colts this year.
Well, and I'm going to quote the great Andrew Moore here.
Oh gosh.
So, the Colts may think that Matt Pryor can get the job done, but Belichick knows that he cannot. Pryor can't pick up a stunt, so expect this all day long. Now, it's sports. It's just brutally honest. It's true. And the thing is, the fact that they waited so long, I know Fries is not, a super duper star out there, but like, good God almighty. I mean, no offense to Matt Pryor, but why did they think that the eyes that were on him in the offseason, why did they think that he was the right answer to start left tackle? I made a mistake. I thought
Chris
Dwayne
Wallace
Brown
is
was
right there.
still.
Chris Wallace is right there with you. He says, and Pryor was Ballard's solution to left tackle this season originally.
Dwayne Brown is 37 years old. He's old, but the man was an all-pro tackle. He was sitting right there. You could have bred Raymond behind him. You could have done that, and they just didn't. They did Ballard's typical save and don't spend thing. So that's what you get, So
It really is. It really is. And hey, we got to get out of here, but I want to do one last question for you, and then I'll kind of give my input. Where do the Colts go from here, Drake? I mean, the coaching changes, the embarrassment in New England, other changes that are probably on the way. Where did the Indianapolis Colts go from here?
Hold on a second. All right, now I can answer. I got it down my gullet here. So I think that what's going to happen is they're going to ride Saturday out. They're going to see what he can do. Irsay obviously trusts him, but I've never felt more lost as a Colts fan. I literally have no idea what we're going to see against Las Vegas. So I think that they're going to probably try to get Taylor healthy. They're going to hope that maybe Saturday can help that offensive line. Good God, I think I'm going to go with a wild card. I definitely think he goes with Matt Ryan when he's healthy again. I really do.
Okay.
I know it's going to cost them money, but I feel like Saturday's going to trust him, especially the fact that Peyton Manning has such a good relationship with him. Apparently, this whole thing's about trust. So I think that's what's going to happen. I'll make a prediction. We finish 6-10-1.
Okay. I feel like for me, it's if you've seen that Mr. Krabs meme where everything's spinning around him. I feel like that's what every Colts fan and every player or every person associated with the Colts organization feels like right now. This season could go one of two ways. Saturday could really be a success, light a fire under this team and really get things going, or things won't change and the Colts will continue to lose games. They'll end up finishing 3-13-1, get a top 5 pick in the NFL draft to select your quarterback. Ballard's out. There we go with a new front office, new coaching staff, whole new regime, whole new rebuild, and go from there. I think while it may seem like the sky is falling, I will say this, it's going to be very interesting to follow along and see what happens over these next 8 weeks, because we're only halfway through the 2022 NFL season. There's still a lot of football left to be played and a lot of things to be solved. So it's going to be a wild season. But thanks a lot, guys, for everyone that joined in. The chat was amazing tonight. We had an incredible amount of viewership. Drake and I are going to be on the Horseshoe Huddle podcast here every Monday and Thursday nights at 7:00, giving our instant reaction from the game. We're going to preview the upcoming game on Thursday nights. So make sure you subscribe to Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube, like it on Facebook, follow Colts at Colts on FN on Twitter. And then you're also going to want to follow us. So go ahead and follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, follow Drake at D Walster Drake. And we'll see you on Thursday to talk some more Colts football and see where the rest of the 2022 season brings us. Take care, everyone.
See you guys.